All of the cards for Twilight of the Republic have been spoiled. You can see them all. I've been looking at a few leaders, a few different deck concepts, and today I have 3 decks to share with you that I think at the very least are interesting or fun, and possibly even very strong. We'll see. I'll explain to you my card choices, why they're in here, what I think they can do, and we'll get right into it. So first, this one I literally just barely made. It's called Anakin Space Bravado, and I'll show you the image here. And should I actually go over here? Yeah. You don't got to worry about the side. The side over there are just other cards that I had been considering, and we can maybe talk about those eventually. But let's look at these cards. So one of the first things I thought of when the Anakin Skywalker leader was revealed was the card Bravado. That if you're not super familiar with it, and you probably aren't, it says if you defeated an enemy unit this phase, this event costs 2 less to play, so it goes from 5 to 3, and it just says ready a unit. And so the first thing I thought of is if you had 20 damage on your base, then Anakin Skywalker would have 8 power. And if you attacked with Anakin twice to your opponent's base, that's 16 damage. And that's pretty strong. Now, there's a few things that can line up here. At first, I was trying to go a little bit too all in on it, so I dropped it down to just 2 copies of it, because it's also just really strong. Even if you just flip Anakin, and you have him, you could have him attack into something and kill something if you need him to, and then you can use Bravado, pay 3, bring it back. You could even do it where you play that turn, maybe you play a Village Protectors first, then you flip Anakin so he can't get like one shot by a Maul or something. And then you can have him take out something to help stabilize a little bit, and then use Bravado and have him hit the base for 7 or 8 damage as well if you need to. The other thing is, if you already have a unit on board that's a little bit resilient, or even just doesn't even have to be crazy, but just, you know, can kill something of your opponents, like a K2 or a Kanan or something. And you can also enable it with Jesse, because Jesse puts a battle droid token on your opponent's board. It's pretty easy to kill something, and if you had both Bravados in your hand the turn that you flip Anakin, even if he's only 7 power, that's 24 damage to the base that you basically threaten. So yeah, like I said, initially I was really trying to figure out how to go all in on this, but then as I started building the deck, I was realizing there's actually so many good two cost cards, and also just good spaceships. You'll see that if I go back over here into this list, we've got 15 space units here, and we've got Anakin's Interceptor, which says if you have 15 or more damage on your own base, it gets +2, so it's a 4/3 for 2. And because we're playing blue, we can play Restored Arc, and we can play Green Squadron A-Wing, we can play Concord Dawn Interceptors, we can also play Red 3, which gives Raid 1 to all of our heroism units. And look at all these. Every unit we have is a heroism unit in this deck. And then for the events, initially I wasn't sure if we would fit Foricaz I Believe in here, because at first I had a few more removal in here. I had like Rivals Fall and Fell the Dragon in here, but then I realized, man, with all these spaceships, I can really just go super fast. And the other thing too, with Restored Arc and Concord Dawn Interceptors complementing our red 2-drops, is that it can sometimes allow Sabine to just not be able to be attacked at all. Because if you turn 1 you play Green Squadron A-Wing, and turn 2 you play a Restored Arc or a Concord Dawn Interceptors, or even just turn 1 Arc 170, turn 2 Red 3, on turn 3 you can play a Sabine in the ground arena and your opponent can't attack it, which is pretty crazy. And another interesting thing here, you'll see this is a new card, Outspoken Representative, which this is still theory right here, right? It's a Republic official, and if you control a Republic unit, then it gains Sentinel. And then it also has, when defeated, create a Clone Trooper token. So there's kind of 2 things that this is doing. We don't have a ton of Republic units. Initially, I had Mace Windu in here, but it just seems like it didn't really matter. But Anakin's interceptor is Republic, and then Anakin himself is Republic. So some potential lines are on Anakin's flip turn. You could play Outspoken Representative first for 2, and then you could flip Anakin, and now the Outspoken Representative has Sentinel, and then you could play the Forces with me on Anakin and have him attack for a bunch of damage and get a shield, and he's protected from a Maul attack or any potential lethal damage that a Sentinel could stop, right? And then if they attack the representative, you get a clone trooper token. So it's not bad. The other thing about that too is the Outspoken Representatives, they activate each other and they're not unique too. So you could play one and then you could play another, and then suddenly they both have Sentinel. But then when one of them dies, it brings out a clone trooper token, which is Republic. So then the other one still keeps Sentinel. So it's a little bit interesting. And then we've got Jesse, because he is also Republic. So you could turn 1 Representative, turn 2 you can play Jesse, and then Jesse is safe from an energy conversion lab, K2SO or something, and also attacks for 5. So gets you a bunch of damage in. Another thing is you can use Anakin's leader side ability to have the Outspoken Representative have 2 power if you need to have it attack into something. You know, like a clone trooper token your opponent has, you can attack into it and stay alive. It's kind of cute. We also put 2 Cassian in here just because we don't have any 5 drops. I mean, technically, Bravado is kind of a 5-cost card, but you can resource Cassian, and you can play him on 5 as a smuggle card that attacks into the base. Yoda has some restore, so you can do some stuff where you play Yoda on turn 2, and on turn 3, if your opponent has a 4 health thing that you'd like to destroy, you can use Yoda and Anakin's ability to have Yoda trade up into that, and Yoda's Restore 2 will essentially make you take no damage on your base. Also, Yoda draws you a card, which is cool. We've got 3 K2 in here because K2 is like one of the best aggro cards in the game. Is insane. Is a card that says, if you kill me, it's going to suck for you, but if you don't kill me, it's going to suck for you. And that's awesome. I put Obi-Wan in here because, you know, it's another 6 deploy Force unit. And we've got a 6-cost thing that benefits Force-related things, and it's a Sentinel and protects our leader, which is cool. So we got that. We got a lot of space aggression here, which I think probably we're going to be able to play into space pretty easily. We've got 15 2-cost cards, so pretty aggro, and 9 of them are space units. So that's fine for us because we want to take damage, and then we're basically hoping that with the combination of some Sentinels that we'll be able to flip Anakin when we have 15, 20 damage on our base. Anakin will be huge, can get 2 attacks in with Anakin, and then they're probably dead. Because if we can get 14, if they're a 30 HP base, if we can get 14 damage on it, then if Anakin flips with 8 power, we have 20 damage on our base, then Bravado just threatens lethal on our opponent instantly, because Anakin will hit for 8, we Bravado, we go again, and we don't have to, we can just cast Bravado for the full 5 if we need to. We don't have to defeat a unit that turn if we've done 14 damage to our opponent's base and they've been doing damage to us. So just some cool stuff there. If you know, if Sabine and the Darksaber end up being played heavily still, and likely probably will, we're in red, so we can play Disabling Fang Fighter. Something I haven't explained yet either is this card, Bold Resistance. At first, I just didn't even consider this card yet. It lets you choose up to 3 units that share the same trait, and they each get +2 for this phase. What's really awesome here is it doesn't say raid 2 or while attacking. It's just they instantly have +2. So if you play this first, and then your opponent was looking to get some favorable trades, they probably can't get favorable trades anymore, because now your units, they have more attack, and that sucks for them. So what do we choose in here? Well, it turns out like almost every spaceship is a fighter. So fighter, 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 fighter. Not redemption. We've got 1 redemption in here as like a potential stabilization card. Like if the game ends up getting to 8 resources and you need to just suddenly have a bunch more health than your opponent, you can do that. But so literally all of these other ones, all these 14 other ships, they're all fighters. And then what else do we have? Well, it turns out we do have a decent amount of Force. We have a decent amount of Rebel because we've got Kanan, which works for the Force, Jedi, and Rebel. Obi-Wan works for Force and Jedi. Our leader is Force and Jedi. And Yoda is Force and Jedi. K2 is a Rebel. We've also got Cassian that's a Rebel. Sabine that's a Rebel. We've got a couple spaceships, Green Squadron, Arc 170, and Red 3, all Rebels. So it's possible that Bold Resistance ends up being pretty strong. I only put 2 in here. And then, of course, because we have such, we're basically an aggro deck. And we've got almost all heroism cards. We've got 2 takedowns in here and 2 bravado, but Forecast, I believe, ends up being strong, of course. And the Force is with me a little bit with some of the Jedis we have. And I think this basically explains the whole deck. Takedown, obviously, is awesome to be able to defeat a Sabine the turn that she flips, or an Asajj Ventress, maybe, if that ends up being something. And yeah, it seems pretty neat. I'll show you the image here again. If you want to take a screenshot, make sure you get this screenshot in here if you want to check this out. And on to the next one. I'm really, really excited about this next one. I'll start with the image here. This is the Villainy clone deck, where Nalase lets us play clones without having to pay aspect penalty for them. So we can play whatever clones we want. And then I'm also opting for Energy Conversion Lab here because, in my opinion, the reason to play Nalase is Wrecker. I know that her leader flip side says each friendly clone gets, when defeated, heal 2 damage from your base. And that definitely sounds very control-like. It sounds like you want to make a control deck out of this. And you probably can. You probably could play that... do we have it down here? The Clone Wars card that says pay any number of resources, create that many clone troopers, and then your opponent gets battle droids. Like, yeah, maybe there's like a just a harder control deck where you are just controlling the board a bunch, and then you can play the Clone Wars, and then you can flip Nalase, and then you can heal 1,000,000 damage suddenly. That could possibly be a thing. Another one is that I just didn't find super impactful, at least for the way that I built this, was the In Defensive Camino that gives your Republic units restore 2 and, when defeated, create clone trooper tokens. These just didn't happen to synergize with the way I was building the deck. Some other cards I was considering was Captain Rex and Fives, but Captain Rex just, he's probably fine, but it's hilariously... I just didn't feel like was aggro enough. You can probably fit him in here. I'm sure you can. And getting 3 bodies for 1 card definitely has some merit. It definitely is solid. But for how I've got it right now, him being a 6 cost, that's... I just... Because I'm trying to ambush. Because I've got... If you didn't see in that 1 second I showed the screenshot, is I've got 3 Timely Intervention in here as well. And... even with Energy Conversion Lab, Captain Rex is just not as impactful with that card, and seemed just a little bit slower, which is, like I said, it seems crazy because he brings out 3 guys, which is cool, but the way I've built this is to be a little bit faster. And so what we've got is, oh, we went back to the wrong screenshot. Here we go. We've got Gideon Hask that is insane to ambush. We've got Wrecker. That's insane to ambush. Maul has built-in ambush. And then I also put 2 Steadfast battalions in here, which I know it's probably been a while since set 1, but it's an overwhelm. And on attack, if you control a leader unit, you can give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. Well, Nalase deploys on 4, and she has huge amount of HP, so she's certainly not dying on that turn, which means you can play Steadfast Battalion. And we're not playing any ramp in this deck, but even if your opponent ends up playing ramp, what's really cool is you'll still have Nala deployed out on whatever turn they deploy their 5-cost leader, and then you can have initiative, and then the next turn you can just Steadfast Battalion in with Energy Conversion Lab to take out their Boba Fett if they didn't armor it, or any other 7 HP leader if you need to. And it also synergizes with what we're doing in this deck, which is overwhelming. The battalion has overwhelm, Wrecker has overwhelm, Maul has overwhelm. We're really trying to defeat them fast. So that's kind of the goal. Another card, let's explain the heavy here, okay? The heavy, it says coordinate, it has raid 2. It also just generically has a when defeated, deal 1 damage to each enemy ground unit. So if they're trying to do some battle droid exploit things, when heavy dies, it can defeat them. It's also convenient, you know, there's plenty of times when you're doing some ambushes or trading the board, or your opponent is, and then they have their unit has 1 HP left. You know, for example, they use a 4-alarm to attack into your 3-power thing. Well, you can use the heavy to energy conversion lab into something else and like defeat that, and maybe the heavy dies, and then it also kills one of their things that has 1 HP. Totally viable, and it's a clone, so you know, Nala will heal you if she's out, and it's a 4 deploy, so Nala's probably out. And Nala also enables the coordinate pretty well too, because if on turn 1 and turn 2 you play anything and they don't die, and then you deploy Nala on the next turn, there's a chance that there's Nala and something else on your board. So if you need to ECL heavy in to kill something with 6 HP, it's going to have coordinate, and it's going to have the raid, and it's going to be able to do that. We're also playing 3 Batch Brothers because it's just awesome. We're a little bit of an aggro deck. These are clone troopers. We're getting the board a little bit wide. That also helps activate heavy if we need to. And what's really cool, like I mentioned Gideon Hask before, is if you get to Energy Conversion Lab, Gideon Haskin, he can give an experience token to a clone if you need to potentially play around some 2 damage removal like Bloodsport if that ends up becoming a thing, or just to have your opponent's clones not trade into them. It could totally be a thing. Also, Gideon's just awesome. So, what else do we speak on here? We're very low on the spaceships in here, okay? So, initially I did end up having 3 Republic ARC 170s, and the reason I'm not putting 2 cost spaceships in here is it just didn't seem impactful enough. I felt like I kind of just wanted these 2-drop clones here, and then going into the Batch Brothers and some other 3-cost stuff. And it felt like getting a 3/4 in space is more impactful because it'll be able to trade with any turn 1 ships and stay alive. So that's my thought there. I also decided to put the Clan Saxon Gauntlet in here too, for a couple reasons. It is a 6 cost, so we can use Energy Conversion Lab if we need to. But also it's a Sentinel, and we're low on ships in space, and it also distributes experience tokens when it gets attacked. So either to make itself more resilient, so it takes more than 2 attacks for it to die, or even just more than 1 attack to die, or it can go and give an XP to one of our ground troopers to make them more resilient or trade better. And what else we got in here? We've got 3 Power of the Dark Side, because I think that Power of the Dark Side is still going to be a solid card, especially in decks that can play Overwhelming Barrage, which we can, because Nala say is Villainy. So if your opponent ends up really just laying out the droid tokens, you'll be able to Overwhelming Barrage on like any of your units, wipe out all of the tokens, and then if they aren't able to immediately fully repopulate the board, then, you know, Power of the Dark Side still ends up being really strong. It's also totally fine turn 2 play. Your opponent plays something in space, and you play something in the ground. Turn 2, you Power the Dark Side. Power the Dark Side is still an awesome card. That's my opinion. This could be not really that impactful, but because of Nala Se having so much HP and deploying on 4 resources, I thought it would be kind of fun to get some kind of upgrade in here. And I didn't want a 3-cost upgrade, and I didn't want Darksaber because it just uses up that whole turn. And so I decided on Electro Staff for now. So we're going to be trying out Electro Staff for a while. It also makes it so that she's also even more de-incentivizing your opponent to attack her because of the -1 that they get when they're attacking the unit that has Electro Staff on it. So then she suddenly becomes a 3/9 that kind of has like mini Boba armor on her. And it's just going to make it so you're going to win every aggro race if she gets to stay up, because you're going to be attacking the base, but then when your clones need to trade with your opponent's units, you're going to be healing 2 damage, and you really just do outpace them damage-wise. So it's just for fun. We'll see if Electro Staff ends up being that impactful. So another thing, I know when we see blue villainy, you really do think Super Laser Blast, Avenger, Snoke. I thought about all those things too, but thanks to a friend just mentioning, you know, with Wrecker, trying to get up to 8 resources is going to be pretty hard. Getting up to 9 resources to an Avenger going to be pretty hard. And I just really want to be using Wrecker. So I cut down on the more expensive stuff. I still think that Maul is strong. Maul is like more Wreckers, essentially. And so I really just wanted more overwhelm, especially if we're able to give our opponent battle droids with, oh, do I not even have him in here? I don't even have Jesse in here. Well, maybe we're gonna have to get Jesse in here instead of the Bold Recon Commando and the Phase 3 Clone Trooper. That's definitely in consideration. I mentioned Jesse in the last deck, but we don't have Jesse in here. I don't know what's wrong with me. We probably put Jesse in this deck, okay? So yeah, if we're especially if we're playing Jesse, Maul is insane. Maul basically does 6 damage to your opponent's base and still has 5 HP left. That's crazy. So yeah, initially, yeah, I put in the Bold Recon Commando and the Phase 2 Clone Trooper in here because I wanted more 3-cost clones, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted. And I definitely wanted at least one Tech because Tech is awesome and he's a clone and we get to play him in Villainy without an aspect penalty. It's really sick. So yeah, just pretend that the Bold Recon Commando and the Phase 2 Clone Trooper, these are Jesse's. And this is probably what the deck will look like. Yeah, I'm also really excited to play Omega. I got the 3 hyperspaces of her a million years ago just because I was a Bad Batch fan and was like, oh, we're going to be able to play clones someday, I'm sure. And here we are. And Wolf is a clone. And he also makes it so your opponent can't heal. And we are more of an aggro deck. Sure, he'll also make it so we can't heal if he attacks and Nalase is up. But, you know, still a solid clone. The Coruscant Guard, it's fine. It actually, with Nalase, you do get the ambush on it a decent amount, and it's not bad. So I don't really think I need to explain too much on here. The side is just other cards, like I said, that I was considering. I know a lot of people who've been trying to look into building this have been looking at the Echoes. And I totally understand that. It sounds cool being able to play the 6 Echoes, but I just don't think it's good enough. Man, if Echo was able to be a 3/2, I think he would be insane. I think it would be awesome. I just don't think Coordinate is in general that good enough to play just a 2/2 and hope for a Coordinate. So. And the other Echo, it has Restore 2, which is fine, but the only thing you're really probably ever going to be able to discard is an Echo if you're playing those. And you can probably find a way to fit those in if that's really what you want to do. It just didn't fit into my build. So, yep, just pretend, and we're just going to, can I actually edit this right now? Yep, we're just going to actually go in right now. And I am taking out the Bold Recon Commandos and the Phase 2 Clone Trooper is definitely valid. And actually, you know, maybe I do keep the one in, and oh, I forgot, we have to go over here. Oh no, something just clicked on something different. Okay, we have to go over here to find Jesse. Jesse, where are you? Jesse's up here. Oh, it's probably not showing set the Twilight of the Republic. Of course. But yeah, I do think that you definitely play Jesse because of the amount of overwhelm we have in this. Jesse is definitely the way to go. Giving your opponent some battle droids that you're going to be able to overwhelm into. All right, gamers, here we go. Now you're going to get the most updated image screenshot. There you go. We put in 2 Jesse. You can totally put in 3 if you want to over Phase 3 Clone Trooper over here. That's totally fine. This is just what I'm doing for now. So take the screenshot and let's move into, I'm probably equally excited with this Villainy clone deck and this blue Sidious deck. So if you've been around the Discords, if you've been trying to pick people's brains about what they're going to do with Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, Blue, you're going to find some very, very similar stuff. I'm going to just explain some of my reasonings here. One of the first things I actually want to explain is what's not in it. Okay, so we're going to go over here, and I'm going to show you in the sideboard. It's not real, just other cards. We've got On the Doorstep and Plo Koon. So a really cute line that I figured out is that you could, turn 1, you play R2-D2 full of solutions, you discard a card, and you can search for whatever combo piece you need for this combo that I'm going to explain. So you R2-D2, you find whatever you need for the combo piece. And then turn 2, it could be that you play phase 3 Clone Trooper, because R2-D2 is probably not going to die. But you can do 2 different things, right? You can either get phase 3 or phase 2 Clone Trooper, or you can get Geonosis Patrol Fighter, whichever one you feel like you're going to need to get for whatever situation you're in. Because either of them are going to enable you to defeat your unit. So say, for example, you play R2-D2 in the ground, and your opponent plays something in space. So you know you're not going to be able to guaranteed play phase 3 or phase 2 Clone Trooper to ambush in and kill something in the ground so that one of your heroisms die. You can grab the Geonosis Patrol Fighter, which has exploit, so then you can just defeat your R2. After it attacks, of course, defeat your R2, and then you get to return something, a 3 cost or lower to your opponent's hand, and you get a ship, and then you get to flip Chancellor Palpatine, which will allow you to heal 2 and draw a card. And then so now you're going to be on the Villainy side. And so then the next turn, you can play On the Doorstep, which is a Villainy card. It gives you 3 ready to battle droids. So now you have 4 units on the board. So Coordinate is super, super on. And then you get to also, with Darth Sidious, you get to bring out a Clone Trooper and deal 2 damage to the opponent's base because you just played a Villainy card. So now you have 5 units on the board, right? And your opponent has maybe 1 unit on the board, and then maybe if they play 1 more that turn. Then you're back on the heroism side for the 5 resource, and you can ambush with Plo Koon, and he'll have raid 3 because you have Coordinate. So you can ambush as a 6/6 on turn 5, and Plo Koon is on 100% of the time. So that's a really cool line that I figured out, and there's lots of different ways that you can enable it, but that's like the most high rolly, and also it works a couple different ways. Like I said, R2 can find you the phase 2 Clone Trooper or Geonosis Patrol Fighter, whichever you need to make sure that one of your heroisms die on turn 2. That's just one combo, okay? And that's the one I just didn't put in this deck. You can put that in if you want to try to do a double yellow Palpatine. Like I'm sure you probably certainly put in this combo, the On the Doorstep Plo Koon R2 combo. So anyways, let's talk about what's actually in this deck. Okay, we'll show you the screenshot again. So really, what you want to do with Chancellor Palpatine, because like really, if you think about it, if they let you start with either side, starting with Darth Sidious would be insanely busted. There's so many just Villainy cards you could play turn 1 that you just instantly get a Clone Trooper and deal 2 damage to your opponent's base. It'd be crazy. It really makes sense why they make you start with Chancellor Palpatine, because it's harder to make one of your units die. There's like some amount of interaction your opponent can do. So we really want to make sure our stuff can die on turn 2. Your opponent isn't really going to want to let Quill stay alive because we have so many blue cards. We're going to be drawing almost every time that Quill attacks. So they might want to attack him. That's one thing. The other thing is we've got phase 1 Clone Trooper and we've got Lothal Insurgent. Both have 2 HP. Pretty easy for your opponent to kill or for you to attack into whatever your opponent played and they will die as well. And the other thing is we've got phase 2 Clone Trooper, which I think you're probably going to have to play in every single Chancellor Palpatine deck, because you play it on the second turn, it has ambush, it only has 2 HP, it's probably going to die. And you really need to get those flips going as soon as possible so you can start bringing out free clone troopers and doing 2 damage to your opponent's base. So what this should, the deck, and like I said, we've got Geonosis Patrol Fighter in here to be a way for us to not have to care if our opponent's going to interact. We can interact with our own units and get them defeated so that we can be drawing a card, healing, flipping to Sidious, making a token, dealing damage. And so I really think that that's why I'm going to be definitely keeping Geonosis Patrol Fighter in here as well. So there we go. We've got all of those. What else do we got in here? So the other thing to know about Chancellor Palpatine is if you're really, really optimizing for the turn 2 flip, then that means a lot of the times you're going to be playing villainy cards when you have an even amount of resources. So you're going to want most of your villainy cards to be even costed. So we've got Lieutenant Childson, also just because we got so many blue cards. We've got Lom Pike, also a 4-cost villainy card. And then Power of the Dark Side is fine too. So we've got a bunch of those. And then on top of this, we've got, I've got 1 Clan Saxon Gauntlet in here just because we are a little bit light on space. We've got the Concord Dawn Interceptors here, and we've got the Geonosis Patrol Fighter that we're going to be able to exploit sometimes. But other than that, there's nothing else going into until we get to Avengers. So I kind of wanted to put 1 Clan Saxon Gauntlet in here. Just, you know, when you need defense against a fire spray before you can get all the way up to the top. And then I've got 1 Bounty Hunter crew in here as well, just to play a little bit of that control game. We don't have, as you can see, we don't have Vigilances in here. So we're really not being a mill deck. The Bounty Hunter crew is more so just to get removal again, if I want it. And then we've got Snoke on the 8. We've got Super Laser Blast. And I'm playing 3 Super Laser Blast because in a deck, the deck that doesn't have a leader to deploy, one of the best things you can do to offset that is to be able to reset the game on 8 resources, because your opponent has certainly flipped their leader by then, and you get to Super Laser Blast, clean the whole board off, and then you're at an advantage because your opponent's leader has essentially probably used and done whatever they can, and they only have whatever their leader side ability is now. And now, from then on out, probably every turn, you're going to be drawing a card, and you're going to be healing, or you're going to be dealing damage and bringing out free clone troopers. So that's kind of my thought process on triple Super Laser Blast. And we've also got Snoke here. Snoke's insane. If you've seen Snoke on the board, you know he's insane. We also, because of Chancellor Palpatine, we get to play 3 Lukes too. So we've got Luke out here. And 2 Rivals Falls, 2 Fell the Dragon. We got 3 takedowns just to really help us against Sabine or any early leaders. And 3 Avengers, because Avenger is my favorite card in the game. I'm sure you can probably just play 2, but I love Avenger, so that's what I'm doing personally. The Concord Dawn Interceptors are cool too because they're a heroism that has Sentinel, so you can make it so they're the thing that dies on when you're on the Chancellor side, so that you can heal and draw a card. So these are just some thoughts. I think that a lot of the 2-drop to 3-drop is pretty locked in for Chancellor Palpatine at this time. I'm not sure what better options you can have. R2 is insane. The Lothal Insurgent is strong too because you can make your opponent randomly discard a card. Yeah, I'm a fan. And you've got Lom Pikes, so you can smuggle them if you need to as well. Yeah, this is the deck. You can play Sabines if you want. I always say Sabines, but it's Buzzine. There's the Zine in it that always gets me. You can definitely play Bazines in the main or the side if you want as well. She's just another yellow unit, so I didn't really want her in the main, especially since, like I mentioned, I'm playing the Geonosis Patrol Fighter. If you wanted to turn this into more of a hard control, you could definitely... I think you could probably drop Rivals Fall because you're definitely counting on... maybe you just keep 1 Rivals Fall, I guess. And you could you find a way to fit in the Vigilances. You probably won't need 3 Avengers. You can just go to Vigilance here. One Avenger becomes a Vigilance. 1 Rivals Fall becomes a Vigilance. maybe even the gauntlet over here becomes a vigilance. And then you can become a mill deck if that's the way you want to go. So this is my thoughts on Blue Sidious. Yeah, we did it. Those are the 3 things that I'm really excited about. Wow, this is a 35-minute video. You are a champ. If you made it all the way through here, let me know with a comment that says 3510, and I will know that you're just insane. You're in the top, probably very small percent that watched all the way through. But yeah, take your screenshots. We'll go through, if you didn't get screenshots before, we'll make it easier for you. Again, we'll go through a little recap. Here's a screenshot for you here. Anakin's Space Bravado. Here is the Villainy clone deck that has Jesse in it. That's all about the overwhelm and the timely intervention and the ambush. And then we've got the Blue Sidious over here. Yeah. And you know what? That's I didn't even realize. It's kind of like 3 different decks, right? Anakin Space Bravado is, I mean, technically the Anakin and the Villainy clone deck are both a little bit aggro. They are, but they're both slightly tilted towards the mid-range. Probably the Villainy clone is a little bit more mid-rangey than the space deck here, because there's just so much space aggression. And then the Blue Sidious is definitely a control deck, right? So we got a variety for you here today. Let me know which one of these is your favorite, if you're excited about any of these, or if there are any other leaders you're excited about. I didn't want to go through all of them because I know last set I did a deck for all leaders, and that was exhausting. And that took me 18 plus hours to go through and figure out decks for all of them. I just decided I needed to get a video out to you guys now, let you guys know some of my thoughts, some of the ones I'm most excited about as soon as possible. And it's these 3. So check them out. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video.